Ladies and gentlemen, fellas, welcome back to the channel and the podcast. Today I'm going to be going over a mock draft that I recently did with some of the following, which you can get into these types of things by joining the Discord, totally free down below. Just want to go through the strategy of not just myself, but people in this one. And as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, I have a lot of the draft blocked out behind me. I don't want to give away any spoilers. I just have the first round up. It's a 14-round, 12-team PPR format redraft, just everything normal here. And I'm pretty much just going to analyze it round by round. I know that I normally do that, but for right now, we're going to just go round by round and keep it organized, and then at the end we could look over everything. So a little bit of a mock draft format. I believe I'll be releasing this on a Friday, so I hope you're all having a great day. You know, relaxing, rolling your shoulders out. It's Friday for you, and if for some reason I don't put that out on a Friday, whatever day it is for you should be a good day. Honestly, for me, Monday's my favorite day of the week. Might be a psychopath for that, but I don't really care. So hope you're having a great day. Hope you're having a good start to your weekend. Appreciate it if you take a second of your time. You're watching this video right now, so thank you so much. Hit that like button right now. Big old subscribe button pops up on the YouTube channel, and hitting the subscribe button really does help, and the notification bell. This channel grow. It's growing in some major ways right now, so that's thanks to all of you. If you're listening on the podcast and you always listen on the podcast, or even if you don't, $50 giveaway once a week. If you leave a review, I pick one review from the entire week and I give that person $50. Now, only like 4 people are doing this a week at this point, so you got a pretty good chance. Like, honestly, if you're doing it right now, a couple more people might do it, but you're probably going to have like a 20% chance of winning $50, which is probably better than most situations you're going to find yourself in, outside of if you just go to the casino and light it on fire, but you don't got to wager the $50 in this case. It's totally free. Get into that raffle, so check that out. All those things down below. And lastly, before we get into this, the Supreme Draft Guide is out on Fantasy Sports Focus. You heard me talking about it. Why haven't you gotten it yet? The people who have gotten it have reached out and told me some good things about it. Honestly, almost all of them in emails. And there's going to continue to be enhancements as the month of July and August and into that month of September, and really the entire month of August when people start to draft. So go ahead, get it. Limited time offer right now during the summer of just $10 thanks to Monkey Knife Fight. If you are eligible, linked down below. Go get it. We're going to start with the first round of this draft right now. You can see it above my head. I picked from the 5th spot. As you can see my picture right there. Ready? Let's get up by it. My head will go off the screen, but that's me, Sal Vetri right there, 1.05. But if you're looking at it, the first 6 picks, and I should call out something right now. Knowing your draft room, and I might have made a mistake. Well, I think I personally know I made a mistake. Some people in the draft didn't think so, but people in this draft know me. They know the style of drafts. They're sharp people if they're drafting at this point, but they're also in my Discord, so they're sharp people, right? So they know that, at least from my standpoint and what I think is the correct standpoint right now, running backs early, back-to-back running backs with your first 2 picks, and just scoop up all the running backs because they're going to go off the board. This draft is an extreme case of how often running backs are going off the board. So I think with my 3rd round pick, you'll see I ended up going wide receiver there. A little spoiler alert, but I probably, and at least right now, want to go, and if I could go back, would have taken a running back there, since so many running backs had already gone off the board, and then just a string of running backs went right after me, and you'll be able to see that in just a second. So the first round starts as it normally does, with McCaffrey, Saquon, Zeke, and Alvin Kamara with the first 4 picks. And it may be a little bit controversial here. I go Joe Mixon at the 1.5. I'm high on Joe Mixon. What can I say? I'm just going along with this. Joe Mixon is the guy that I'm going to be high on. He has some holdout risks. I don't think they're as major as Dalvin Cook's holdout risks. So at that point for me, normally at the 1.5, it'll be a Dalvin Cook if he's still on the board. But based on the time that I was recording this, Dalvin Cook does have holdout risk. Now, I made a video on Dalvin Cook's holdout, and I don't think he's going to actually hold out. But right now, at this point in the summer, the odds that Joe Mixon holds out compared to Dalvin Cook, to me, if I had to give them percentage chances, probably like 20-25% lower in my opinion, if not more. So when it comes down to being that close, and I have these guys pretty close, a lot closer than most people, I ended up just taking Joe Mixon there. I'm happy that I don't have to actually make this decision. Like, this was just a mock draft, not a lot of money, well, no money on the line, but even in a lot of best ball leagues, not a ton of money on the line right now. So I don't have to make this decision between 2 guys who have holdout risks and then just decide which one doesn't. I don't think either of them holds out at the end of the day, but for right now, with the information that we have, I decided to just go Mixon over Dalvin Cook there. Derrick Henry goes at the 1.7, so the first 7 picks are running backs, and you get Michael Thomas and Adams off the board. And honestly, right now in drafts, I'd still continue to go running back. So Tony D goes with Michael Thomas. That's fine, right? You're getting a top wide receiver. Noto goes with Devontae Adams. I think those are fine, but I'd still be going running backs there. Like at the 1.8, I'm probably end up taking Miles Sanders or Josh Jacobs or Nick Chubb, probably Nick Chubb at that point. And then you see at the 1.10, Miles Sanders goes. The 1.11, you get Kenyon Drake and Josh Jacobs at the 1.12. So in the first round, 10 running backs go. So you can see right away what's happening in this draft. Round 2 starts with Nick Chubb and Austin Eckler. So those guys go back to back with their running back picks. So it's comboed with Josh Jacobs and Nick Chubb for the 12th pick overall in the first round, and the 11th pick overall took Kenyon Drake, but then he backs it up with Austin Eckler. I really like that Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb stack. I think those are 2 guys with a lot of upside in a run-first offense where they are the lead backs. I know Kareem Hunt is there, but he is not a... Nick Chubb's still going to run the ball 300 plus times. Now he might only catch 15 balls or 20 balls this year instead of the potential 35 or 40 he could have caught with no Kareem Hunt back there, but I don't think it's going to affect his overall red zone usage and his on-the-ground usage. So if you're keeping track at home, that's 14 running backs taken in the first 16 picks. picks. Pretty nuts stuff so far. And I'm looking right now and I realize that I'm wearing a black shirt with this black background, so I might look like I'm floating, but I promise you, I still have a torso. So what we're going to now is Tyreek Hill and DeAndre Hopkins, so some wide receivers were taken. Then you get Melvin Gordon, Julio Jones, and then Aaron Jones goes. So right now, based on what's all happening, I think Melvin Gordon might go a little bit early or a little bit earlier than I would have expected compared to some other guys I've ranked ahead of him, but it's nothing major in that department. It gets to my pick at the 2-8. So I already have Joe Mixon. I then hit the button on Todd Gurley. Now, normally at this spot at the 2-8, I would think that I could probably get an Eckler. I can get a Josh Jacobs. I can get a Kenyon Drake. Somebody might have fallen to me, right? But I'm fine going to Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley right now is my 13th ranked overall running back. I have him ahead of Melvin Gordon, who already went off the board. I have him ahead of Aaron Jones, who already went off the board. So I feel good about this. One spot of Clyde Edwards-Helaire is where Todd Gurley lands for me right now. So I start with my back-to-back running backs, who I think have a ton of upside. You have Joe Mixon, who I think is going to have a 300-plus touch season. And then you have Todd Gurley, who is like, one of 3 running backs in this league who doesn't have an actual backup behind him. Let's think about it. Christian McCaffrey, no real backup. Reggie Bonnafon might touch the ball 5% of the time if McCaffrey's healthy, if that. And then you have Saquon Barkley, who has just a couple of backups behind him. Like Deion Lewis is not scaring me off with Saquon Barkley. And then you have Todd Gurley, who has nothing behind him. Brian Hill, Ito Smith, these guys aren't going to produce. So Todd Gurley, look, he played the 6th most snaps in the NFL as a running back last year, but some people are still thinking that he's wildly injured. Maybe he has injury risk, but he's not injured right now. He played behind the worst offensive line last year, so that surely goes into it. I think Todd Gurley is going to touch the ball 300-plus times if he's healthy. So yeah, at the end of the second round, he's my 13th overall running back in my rankings. I like that a lot. And then the second round ends with just a bunch of different positions going. Chris Godwin goes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Patrick Mahomes. So the first quarterback goes off the board here, and Kenny Golladay. So nothing major there. I will call out that something that the second overall pick in this draft, I believe it's Sumo Wrestler, is doing. Take Saquon Barkley, who is right up there with Christian McCaffrey, in my opinion, as the 1A, 1B. I honestly think they're in the same tier. If you want to tell me you have Christian McCaffrey ranked behind Saquon in redraft, I'd say, okay, like I'm not going to argue with that. I think Saquon is just as good. I think he has just as much of a ceiling to do things that Christian McCaffrey did last year for Saquon to do this year if he's healthy. People slotting Christian McCaffrey into the 101 is a fine move as well, but I don't think that it's just has to be that way. So right now Saquon goes, and then he takes Patrick Mahomes. So keep an eye on what he's doing right there as we go through this next turn, and I come down yet again to the third round here on the screen, because he's got now potentially the best running back and potentially the best quarterback. My top ranked quarterback and a tier 1 running back of only 2 of those in this year's draft for me in my rankings. So round 3 starts with another quarterback, Lamar Jackson. Now people ask me, I'm just not going to get these guys, right? Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, unless it's a 2 quarterback or super flex league, I'm probably just not getting these guys because I historically wait, and I say historically like I'm ancient here, but I'm going to wait on quarterbacks a decent amount. Travis Kelce goes off the board first, tight end. This is what I'm talking about. So Sumo Wrestler goes out there and he says, you know what? I'm going to build a little bit of a stack here, Mahomes and Kelce. It's okay for a redraft. I'm not totally against it, but I don't think it matters as much when you only have to beat 11 people. You don't have to take too much advantage of correlation. But he might have not even been trying to do that, because what does he have set up here? Well, this guy now has the potential RB1 in Saquon, very high upside for Saquon to be RB1, is Patrick Mahomes, who obviously quarterback 1 is in his range of outcomes and potentially likely, and then Travis Kelce, who tight end 1 has been his thing for a few years now. So now he sets up with the potential to have the best running back, quarterback, and tight end in the draft. And that's a little bit of an interesting build. No quarterbacks yet, right? No running backs outside of Saquon yet. So interesting build to go that way. But I like the mold there. You can win at running back every week, quarterback, and tight end pretty easily, and allow you to get some lower hanging fruit, I guess, at the running back position if those guys prop you up. So the round goes nothing stands out in any odd ways. Mike Evans, George Kittle. I then get to my pick here in the third pick. The third round, my third pick at the 3-5. I go Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson right now is my 8th ranked wide receiver on my board, and he was by far the best wide receiver left in my opinion. 8 other wide receivers already went off the board, and I'm sitting here saying, okay, I got 2 running backs that I really like. I might as well go get my elite wide receiver. Now, I personally like to start my drafts with back-to-back running backs every single time, as of right now, and getting 3 running backs in my first 4 picks, and the ideal running back would be, and the ideal start for me would be 4 running backs in my first 5 picks, and then I don't draft the running back again, unless it's a deeper round draft, like an 18 to 22 rounds. Then I'll get some guys later on, some rookies or younger players, maybe end up with 5 total running backs, but those 4 guys in the first 5 rounds, they're up there for a reason. I don't have to draft another one normally at that point. So this is where I make my blunder, because as of right now, only 8 wide receivers have gone off the board. And I mean, alone in the first round, there was 10 running backs, right? When you factor in the second round of running backs, you end up getting to, I believe, 17 running backs that had already gone off the board in the first 2 rounds of this draft. And right now I'm sitting here with only 8 wide receivers off the board, 17 running backs off the board. I end up taking Allen Robinson because I do think he's a wide receiver 1. I do think he's an elite wide receiver. What I ended up passing on there was these next guys. Leonard Fournette, Jonathan Taylor, David Johnson, Chris Carson, Carson. Those types of guys I end up passing on, even if you wanted to go down the chain of guys that did not make it back around to me, which is a little bit of a spoiler alert for what's happening in the next draft or round of the draft. Le'Veon Bell, Montgomery, Conner, those guys don't make it back to me, so it kind of sucks. If I could redo this, I would go Leonard Fournette here, and my draft would start Mixon, Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette. 3 guys that I think if they all stay healthy are going to touch the ball 300 to 350 plus times this year, and that feels really good in my lineups. So this is why we mock draft. I did not read the room correctly in this one. These are all people who follow me. They all know to be taking running backs early. The fact that nearly 2 times the amount of running backs already gone off the board compared to wide receivers meant that I should have snagged another running back here, because what you see happens after this, a string of running backs goes in green. Right after my pick, Jonathan Taylor, Fournette, David Johnson, and Chris Carson go. Okay, well, there's still some guys left at running back that I like, but you'll see in the 4th round, they pretty quickly all disappear. So that is my first regret, and unfortunately, it changes the entire way that I draft. But I do think that you have to just switch. Once you realize that, okay, you made a bad decision, you have to change the speed of the draft. So I ended up just continuing to pile on wide receivers, which you're going to see in a minute, to try and just gain control of this draft so that I'm not playing catch up, right? Because now if I go with a running back in the 4th round, which you'll see that I don't, now I'm just playing catch up. Now I'm getting a worse running back than everybody else did, and they're starting to take receivers, and I'm playing catch up there. And then in the tight end round, I'm playing catch up there. So I want to get ahead of the curve, and you'll see that I do that. The end of this draft just ends up going with another couple of wide receiver ones and Adam Thielen, Odell, and DJ Moore, at least in my rankings. Let's go into the 4th round now. So I got up here the 4th and the 5th rounds right now. The 4th round starts with Robert Woods going off the board, and then you start to see another run on running backs right above my head, and it just stinks, right? Le'Veon Bell goes, David Montgomery, James Conner, Mostert. I have no interest in Mostert. I have interest in David Montgomery for sure, and then I do have some interest in James Conner. So I would have probably taken one of those guys at my 4th pick. They go about 3 or 4 picks before me, and then a run on wide receivers goes, which I actually end up taking one as well. You can see right here, I'll hover over it. This was my pick. It's Calvin Ridley at the 4-8. So normally, like I said, 3 running backs in your first 4 picks, 4 in your first 5 is ideal, but that completely changed. Because in the 4th round, I would have had to been forced. I was looking at Cam Akers, and this is what my decision was. My decision was Cam Akers can make it back to me at the 5th pick. So if I take Calvin Ridley now, I have 2 stud wide receivers with 2 stud running backs, and then Cam Akers for me is somebody who I think has all the upside in the world this year, and somebody that I'm really trying to get in drafts right around that 5th round. So I end up taking Calvin Ridley here as a string of wide receivers goes. It starts with Kupp, Juju, then I take Ridley, AJ Brown, and Amari Cooper. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, 5th round, Cam Akers or Kareem Hunt, I feel good about. I feel a lot better about Cam Akers since I think he has the upside to see 250 to 300 touches this year, but I don't think Kareem Hunt ever sees that unless Nick Chubb gets hurt. So Hunt and Devin Singletary go to close the 5th round. That kind of stinks. So you can see now at the bottom of the screen, or at least what's showing right now in the 5th round, starts with some wide receivers. So I'm feeling good. Cam Akers is still on the board. Keenan Allen, DK Metcalf goes. Dang it. I really like DK Metcalf. He's done. T.Y. Hilton goes. Okay, I didn't care about him. 1 pick before me, Dirty Dollar Bill is his name, ends up taking Cam Akers. Man, my heart drops because now I'm in a situation where I go, I'm looking at the board. I don't like any of these running backs left, not for 5th round picks in a redraft format at least. The running backs left on the board at this point, once Cam Akers goes, is Mark Ingram, DeAndre Swift, Darius Geis, J.K. Dobbins, Jordan Howard. These are quickly disappearing backs. Now you could have said I could have taken Mark Ingram there and felt decent. I could have, but I didn't want that pick. I thought there was flashier wide receivers on the board. So what I end up doing here, I end up going with this pick right here next to Cam Akers, which is Terry McLaurin. So now I'm starting 2 running backs, Mixon, Gurley, and then 3 receivers in a row, Robinson, Ridley, and McLaurin. I actually like the way this team is starting, but in the back of my head, I know I'm going, oh shit, there's no running backs left in this board right now. So I'm just going to keep piling on the wide receivers. McLaurin, I like a lot. There's no competition there. Steve Sims is his only competition. They didn't bring any tight ends in. They brought a bunch of running backs in, but a bunch of dusty running backs and a bunch of pass catching guys. Antonio Gibson, maybe he takes away from him, but right now, Terry McLaurin is an absolute monster. He broke a ton of records and a bunch of metric charts for a lot of people last year. I think reception, perception, he pretty much broke. McLaurin is somebody that I liked. I took him over Cortland Sutton, Tyler Lockett. So the decision here was I took McLaurin over Tyler Lockett and DJ Shark, which I had those guys ranked higher than him. I ended up doing it because I felt good about my wide receivers already. Like if this was for my wide receiver 2 right now, I probably would have gone Lockett or Shark. Probably Lockett because it's a little bit more stability there. But I already have Ridley and Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson, I think, is very stable. Ridley, I think, is pretty stable. But even if he doesn't hit these expectations that a lot of people are asking for, the combination of Terry McLaurin and Calvin Ridley, I think, provides a pretty elite wide receiver 2 combination there. The round 5 continues to go on. We get Mark Andrews to go with the 3rd tight end off the board. Then these running backs just pretty much get sucked up. And I already know at this point, after taking McLaurin in the 5th round, that I'm just going to wait on running backs and try and double tap the position later in the draft and get my 3rd and 4th running backs there. Maybe pick up a 5th running back. So this is why I'm saying that I kind of regret this, because my team could have been Joe Mixon, Todd Gurley, and Leonard Fournette, pretty much done with running backs, and then go get myself a Calvin Ridley and a McLaurin, and I'm still looking at a pretty good team. Pretty much substitute in Leonard Fournette for Allen Robinson there, and honestly, I might do that. Now, Allen Robinson for me is ranked 3 spots higher in my top 150. Again, you can get all those things down below in the Supreme Draft Guide. Check it out. But the rankings is not something that you should only be going off of. You have to decide how your team's looking and how the draft is going. Positional scarcity and value-based drafting do matter. So the end of the 5th round ends. DeAndre Swift goes off the board. Let's pull up the 6th and the 7th rounds now. So I got the 6th and the 7th rounds on the board. Darius Geis and J.K. Dobbins end up going off the board to start the 6th round. Some nice picks then go off the board in Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker. I'm just looking at wide receivers still. So we're in the 6th round. I've taken 3 wide receivers in a row, and I'm still just looking at wide receiver. I know the running backs left suck. Jordan Howard goes off the board. Dak Prescott goes off the board. And now it gets to my pick right before me. I wanted A.J. Green. He goes a pick before me, so I kind of get sniped again. I end up taking Will Fuller here. I hated this range. The 6.8 pick, I hated everything around here. I almost took Kyler Murray at the 6.8 only because I hated everything else left on the board. I'm not usually one to take quarterbacks in that range, but I'm looking at wide receivers that are named Will Fuller, Hollywood Brown, Tyler Boyd, Michael Gallup, Christian Kirk. Like, I like all these wide receivers, but these are all guys that I can get 1 to 2 rounds later. Then I'm looking at the running backs on the board: Ronald Jones, Damian Williams, Phillip Lindsay. I don't want any of those guys in the 6th round. I could have taken a Zach Ertz or a Kyler Murray here, so maybe I end up going Kyler Murray if I redo this, because at this point I feel like I'm just in this gap of my tiers where a lot of these guys can probably make it to the next pick. So I end up taking Will Fuller there just to keep piling on the wide receiver train, just to try and take control of this draft. What do I mean by take control of the draft? Well, I only drafted 2 running backs early. At this point, most people have 3 to 4 running backs on their roster. If I start to take running backs, I'm just piling up worse running backs than they are, and then they start to take wide receivers, and then I'm starting to play catch up and take worse wide receivers than they are. So, okay, fine, you got your 3 running backs. I'm just going to blow everybody else out of the water at wide receiver, in my opinion. And that's what I do by just pounding wide receiver from the 3rd to 7th round. So I take Will Fuller here. You can see right below that in the 7th round, I take Christian Kirk. Was very happy to get Christian Kirk there. Actually ended up taking Kirk over Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks ranked a couple spots higher, but since I took Will Fuller the pick before, I figured might as well not get both of those guys. I've had both of them in a couple of mock drafts so far, based on the value that they provide, so I don't hate that. So the end of the 7th round starts to go with just a hodgepodge of guys. You can see running backs start to dwindle. Only Damian Williams was the only running back taken in the 7th round. More tight ends were actually taken in the 7th round than actual running backs. So Zach Ertz and Gronkowski go in the 7th. Deontay Johnson, Julian Edelman go at the end of the 7th. Let's go to the 8th round here. So right now, if we just kind of talk about where my draft is currently going, as I put the 8th and 9th rounds on the screen, I end up going with Mixon with the 1st pick, and then 2nd pick Gurley. So 2 running backs, and then I just pound 5 wide receivers in a row: Robinson, Ridley, McLaurin, Will Fuller, and Christian Kirk. My next goal is to say, okay, let's go and see what's left at running back, because I only got 2 right now. And then as we hit those double-digit rounds, we'll start to look at tight end and quarterback, because based on, again, the draft room that you're in, everybody's taking quarterback, or everybody's taking wide receivers and running backs. Based on the fact that they watch my content, they're pretty sharp people. They know to wait on quarterbacks. At this point, I mean, we're sitting there through 6 rounds and only 4 quarterbacks are off the board. We're sitting there through 7 rounds and only 6 quarterbacks are off the board, right? So late round quarterbacks are definitely what a lot of people seem to be wanting to target in this one. So the 8th round starts with a couple of late round quarterbacks starting to go a little bit: Tom Brady and Drew Brees. I don't really agree on either of those picks based on what was left on the board, but that's fine. Darren Waller, Hayden Hurst. I don't want to be reaching here. Like the 8th round, I don't think you're reaching on Waller. I think he fell actually a decent amount. But these types of tight ends, I think they're all very similar. Like I think tight ends 6 and 7 are very similar to what's getting drafted at like tight ends 16 and 17 this year. So if I can wait 4 more rounds and get a guy who I think has similar upside to the tight end 7 and he's going at tight end 18, I'll just wait for that. And that's why I don't think tight ends being drafted in like the 7th to like, I don't know, 9th round are really that meaningful unless some guys drop in value, which Waller did a little bit here. And then you can see this run on running backs just goes. It's an insane run. Like I'm part of it too. So you can see it starts with James White. I was looking at James White. I wanted him. It then goes to Tevin Coleman. My pick at the 8-8 comes up. Reminder, I only have 2 running backs so far. So I go and I get Matt Breida at that point, Marlon Mack, Sony Michel, Zach Moss, and Phillip Lindsay. The 8th round ends up ending with 7 running backs in a row taken. So you can see a lot of guys were like, oh damn, running backs are going off the board. And it just kept going and going and going. The 9th round starts with Darius Slayton, but then another running back and Tony Pollard goes off the board. So I'm sitting here now and I like to go back-to-back positions, and it could be 5 in a row like I did with the wide receiver, right? If I draft a position, unless it's quarterback or tight end, I usually like to go back-to-back with it. I try to at least, because at that point, when you go back-to-back with it, you're kind of done with it for that point. You kind of get what you need there, while other people are still trying to make up for that later in the draft, taking worse players. So I get my 3rd running back in Matt Breida in the 8th round, and then in the 9th round, I go and I get Tariq Cohen. Now, I don't love these guys, right? But based on what was left on the board, Kerryon Johnson's, Justin Jackson's, Alexander Madison's, I think the combination of these 2 pass-catching running backs, these 2 guys in Matt Breida who can be be more than a pass catching running back for sure. Has a lot of upside here. Cohen he had a ton of volume, but was inefficient last year. So even if the volume drops because they're a better team this year and they run the ball more with Montgomery and they don't have to pass as much from behind, if the efficiency comes back up and the touchdowns come back up for Cohen, it could be a pretty similar year overall for fantasy point scoring. So I go ahead, I double tap my running backs there. Looking as the rest of the round in the 9th round goes, you see the rookie wide receiver. I believe the first rookie off the board in Jerry Jeudy goes. A lot of people high on Jerry Jeudy this year in redraft formats. I don't see it. I don't see it relative to the other rookies. I'd rather have Michael Pittman's. I'd rather have CeeDee Lamb's. I would arguably rather have, honestly, Denzel Mims, definitely based on where they're both going in drafts. So the 9th round starts to end with some more quarterbacks taken, Carson Wentz, Evan Ingram. So how I'm looking at it right now is, okay, Carson Wentz just went off the board. I don't have a lot of QB1 options left. I think Matt Ryan starts the 10th round, and I'll pull that up right now. So now at the bottom of the screen, the 10th and the 11th rounds have been shown. You can't see him because he's behind me, but Matt Ryan starts the 10th round right there a little bit somewhere. Yeah, right there he starts the 10th round off. So I'm looking at this and I'm going, damn, like my top 10 quarterbacks, there's only one left and his name is Matthew Stafford. And a lot of people were about 6 picks away. I'm feeling pretty risky here. I took Tariq Cohen in the 9th because there wasn't a lot of running backs. And I looked at the board and I saw, okay, the board, let's look at this. Ready? This guy's already got Dak. This guy's got Deshaun. This guy's got Drew Brees and this guy's got Tom Brady. Odds of these guys actually taking a second quarterback in this round are very slim. So I did make it back to me with the guy that I wanted. Some other running backs go, Boston Scott, McFarland, and Antonio Gibson in the 10th round. So you can see how dry running back is. Literally in the 10th round, you're already having to take backups in Boston Scott and upside rookies, but guys who definitely aren't walking into any type of workload and high volume workload in Antonio Gibson and Anthony McFarland. So with my 10.8 pick, I finally get my quarterback, Matt Stafford. I put a recent video out, like my favorite picks this year based on ADP. He's one of them. He's my quarterback that I'm targeting in every single draft. I have him as a top 10 quarterback right now. A lot of people ranking him like quarterback 12 to 14. I don't see how he's not out in your top 10 in my opinion. If he stays healthy, he should be fine. People think that he's just like already an injury-prone quarterback. He had one of the longest streaks of playing games and also playing injured in those games, and he was highly productive. But then he ends up having one back injury, and everybody's losing their mind for only half a season. People think he missed all of last year. He played half the season and was the second best quarterback in the league, in my opinion, from a stats standpoint for fantasy, behind only Jameis. So the 10th round ends with just a bunch of other guys going. Anthony Miller ends up going. That's a really good pick in the 10th round. I do like that pick. I believe that's also Sumo. We'll look at all these teams in a second, but the 11th round starts with Michael Pittman. I really wanted Michael Pittman. I was hoping he would drop, but that's where he should go. If not, he already went a little bit later. I need a tight end at this point. Jared Cook goes in the 11th round. I think that's pretty bad. Jared Cook is somebody that, sure, he was good last year. He's my 18th ranked tight end right now, so I really have no interest. A lot of people ranking him in their top 10. I don't see it. You have Emmanuel Sanders signed, and his touchdown rate was one of the most extreme that we've seen out of a tight end in quite some time based on the low volume that he actually saw. So Jared Cook is a candidate to go from a top tight end last year to outside the top 20 or right around the top 20 at best this year if his touchdowns do naturally regress and Emmanuel Sanders takes some of that target competition away in the middle of the field. So I get my guy Mike Gesicki here. He's overall right now a top 12 tight end for me. So I get a quarterback, one in my opinion, right? Top 12 quarterbacks in the 10th round. I get a tight end, one in my opinion in the 11th round. It was very hard for me to choose between Gesicki and Jonnu Smith. Gesicki's my tight end 11, Jonnu Smith's my tight end 12. If this was a deeper round draft, I would have probably gone back-to-back picks and in the 12th round taken Jonnu Smith and just got my tight ends out of the way. I think both guys have a lot of upside this year. The 11th round starts to go and some more rookies go off the board. Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk finishes the round off. Some more tight ends. So nothing crazy in this round. Let's pull up the last couple of rounds now. So you can see the last 3 rounds are on the board. I'll hover over to where my picks are. So my last 3 picks of this draft were Chase Edmonds. I get a 5th running back, a guy who I think has the upside to be a 3rd down back in Arizona. And yes, I think Kenyon Drake has the upside to see 350 touches this year, but I think he's a high upside backup for that late in the draft compared to what was going off the board like AJ Brown's and Damian Harris's at this point. And then I finished my draft with things that I love to do. Double tap a position and get upside players later in the draft. I get 2 upside rookie receivers in Laviska Shenault with my last pick and Denzel Mims in the 13th. I love both of those guys. So the fact that I now have 7 receivers, 5 running backs, a quarterback and a tight end in a 14-round draft, I feel good about that. I feel really good about my receivers. I think I won the draft in wide receivers at least. I think all these guys have upside. Allen Robinson, Calvin Ridley, Terry McLaurin, Will Fuller, Christian Kirk, Denzel Mims, and Laviska Shenault. I don't see a guy there that lacks any sort of upside, who lacks any sort of ceiling. I think all of those guys lack a ton of upside. And honestly, I think all those guys that I drafted outside of Christian Kirk because of DeAndre Hopkins being there, but he's in an offense. And first of all, I got him in the 7th round midway through, and he's in an offense that's going to provide a lot for a wide receiver too. I think all these guys have the opportunity to be a wide receiver 1. Allen Robinson, definitely. Calvin Ridley, of course, he can put up those numbers. He can put up top 20 numbers in this offense. Terry McLaurin, yes. Will Fuller, definitely, with no more Hopkins there. Denzel Mims, I think, can be the wide receiver 1 for the Jets. Shenault is definitely behind Shark, in my opinion, but I think he has that upside and talent profile to be a wide receiver 1 type player. In the last 3 rounds, nothing major stood out in terms of any picks. People got their late round quarterbacks, their backup tight ends. In a 14-round draft, I'm not really interested in taking a backup tight end or backup quarterback. I want to load up on skill position players. The last pick of the draft, if anybody was interested, Phillip Rivers, second to last pick, a guy who I think is pretty sneaky in Randall Cobb. So let's take a look at overall what these teams did here. And again, if you will, just please hit that like button and the big old subscribe button that pops up. Appreciate that. So I'll just do a quick review of my team. Joe Mixon, Gurley, Allen Robinson, Ridley, Terry McLaurin, Will Fuller, and Christian Kirk. So I go 5 wide receivers in a row. Then I go back-to-back running backs again as I started my draft with Mixon and Gurley. In the 8th and 9th round, I go Matt Breida and Cohen. Matt Stafford, Mike Gesicki in the 10th and the 11th. And then Edmonds, Mims, and Laviska Shenault to end my last 3 picks. Again, if I had one regret, I guess you can say, it would be not taking a guy like Leonard Fournette over Allen Robinson in the 3rd round and just really ending my running backs that I needed early on. Because now I'm relying on my flex, or really, honestly, since I have so many receivers, my running back 3 to be some pairing right now of Breida, Cohen, and Chase Edmonds, so I'm probably going to have to watch the waiver wire. Sumo Wrestler starts his draft with Saquon, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce. I like that, right? You're getting potentially the best player at all those positions this year. But then he's forced then to go Kareem Hunt in the 4th round because there's not a lot of guys left. I personally would have gone Cam Akers there, but I think it's fine to go Hunt. He gets DK Metcalf in the 5th, which is his wide receiver 1. And honestly, I think DK Metcalf at the end of this year, if you told me he finished as a top 10 receiver, I would not be shocked. He's currently ranked as a top 20 guy for me. So as your wide receiver 1, I don't hate that. But now it starts to get thin. I was interested in seeing him take Kyler Murray in the 6th round. Like, that was very interesting to me, right? You already have Patrick Mahomes. I thought this draft was going pretty interesting and decent and strategic. Unless now you're trying to trade Kyler Murray or Mahomes, which I don't know why you would even draft them in the first place then. I don't really see the point in that, right? He ends up having to take Michael Gallup as his wide receiver 2. His wide receiver 3 is Anthony Miller. I think all these guys have upside. Like, I like all the receivers that he has, but to rely on them for that much upside is a little bit tough. I think that the Kyler Murray pick was a little bit interesting. I think that the Kareem Hunt pick could have been Cam Akers, but there's not many options other than that. So overall, interesting draft. I honestly, I'll say that I don't like it, but I like the strategy there. He's just testing things out, it seems like, in the mock draft. I don't think he's actually trying to draft that type of a team. So this is the only guy who ended up drafting 3 running backs in a row. And I love the way that it goes. Webben, the guy who picks after me, he takes Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, and Jonathan Taylor. That's a great start in my opinion. He ends up then going with 4 receivers in a row. I love all the receivers he gets. Juju, Sutton, AJ Green, Brandon Cooks. Now, some of those guys are better than others. I like Juju and probably Cooks and AJ Green more than Sutton, but I like the way that starts. He then gets his 4th running back in Tevin Coleman. That's fine. And then he gets his late round tight end and Hunter Henry in the 10th and Aaron Rodgers in the 11th. I like the way that starts. Only guy to take 3 running backs in a row in this draft. Very interesting. Another draft that started just like mine with 2 running backs and then a wide receiver, but he was actually based on the fact that he drafted towards the end of the draft, able to pull his 3rd running back with his 4th pick, was Benny Frank 11. Benny Frank gets Kenny Drake and Austin Eckler. He then gets Odell and Le'Veon Bell. I think that's a fine team. I would have probably gone, you know what, I probably would have gone maybe Le'Veon Bell over David Montgomery. It's pretty close there. But either way, I think that's a good team start. You end up getting your 3 running backs with your first 4 picks. I like that a lot. So these are some of the teams. You can look at the entire board. Let me know what you think of my draft. What do you think of some other people's? And if you want to get into these, hop into the Discord down below. Be sure to get the Supreme Draft Guide. I don't know what you're waiting for right now. The summer is going deeper and deeper. It's time to prepare for your fantasy football seasons. You can get it for just $10 right now. Thanks to Monkey Knife Fight. Link down below if you were eligible. If not, the other site to get it for the full price at Fantasy Sports Focus. My website is linked also down below. Like button before you go. Big old subscribe button. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. Ask me any questions that you might have there or in the Discord down below. Peace out, gang, and I'll see you in the next one.